Let's look at Acts chapter 2. We're finishing up, wrapping up this series today. Just 4 quick weeks on Acts chapter 2, verse 42, because this talks about the early church. And we're going to read it again. It starts in verse 42, Acts chapter 2. They devoted themselves, again, the they is the church. That'd be us, the people like you and me, not just the preachers, not just the elders or the leaders or whoever. It's all of us, the church. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and the prayers. And all came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common, and they were selling their possessions and belongings, distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together, breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God, having favor with all the people, and the Lord added to the number day by day, those who were being saved. So the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about these things that the early church, this first century church, was devoted to. The apostles' teaching, we have it today, to this very day. We can open this book and read it anytime we want. The apostles' teaching, and they devoted themselves to this. Of course, it wasn't in written form yet for many of them. It was being taught to them. The apostles were right there. And today we have it. We have it right here. We devote ourselves to that. To the fellowship, which is bigger than like a dinner or a donut. It's the fellowship, this body of the church, the bride of Jesus Christ. To the breaking of bread, which we talked about last week. And this morning we'll talk about that fourth thing, the prayer, to prayer. And I'm going to go out on a limb this morning and make the assumption that most of us we love the idea of being devoted to prayer, right? No, I doubt anyone's going to say, well, I don't want that. That seems like terrible. That's a terrible idea. I don't want to devote myself to that. But probably few of us would actually raise our hands if I asked how many of you consider yourself to be truly devoted to prayer. I'm not saying you don't pray or you do pray. I'm just saying most of us probably think, yeah, I could probably grow in that area. I could probably up that a little bit. And there's also the possibility that some of us could be even somewhat new to the concept of prayer. Like you're not even really sure. You know, people talk about prayer and you act like, yeah, prayer, but you go home and you think, I don't even know what this is. I don't even know how this thing works, right? And so what we're going to do this morning is first lay a couple very basic concepts of prayer, right? I mean, this is just what prayer is, right? It's very basic fundamental things, and then we're going to get some main application in. That's the game plan for the day. The first basic concept, is that prayer is communication with the living God of the universe. I thought it was interesting, Danielle actually, I think, said that word for word earlier. Prayer is communication with the living God of the universe. Let that just kind of soak in for a moment. You're communicating with the living God of the universe. There's really two parts of this sentence here. Number one is the communication part. Communication kind of takes some effort, right? I mean, it doesn't just naturally happen, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a friendship or whether it's at work or whether it's with God. You don't just lay around and communicate generally. It takes a little bit of effort on your end to actually communicate to someone. When I was in high school, I had a girlfriend whose mom used to light candles with pictures of Jesus on it, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And one day I kind of thought, well, some days it was lit, some days it wasn't. I wasn't really sure. And one day we're walking in the living room, and there's a Jesus candle, and it was lit, and I finally asked the dumb question, well, what's with the candle? You know, and she said, well, my mom's praying. And I was kind of confused because actually Mom was in the corner with some beverage in her hand watching television, and I'm like, well, I just didn't get it. So I didn't kind of pursue it. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying I just didn't get it. That the candle meant she was praying. I just wasn't sure, and I didn't want to sound too dumb, so I kind of dropped it at that point. These days, we like to equate good thoughts with prayer, right? You see it all the time. Maybe you hear it all the time. You see it on social media. You hear it on the news, all that kind of stuff. Someone says, hey, I'm applying for a big job tomorrow. We're sure would appreciate your prayers. And people say, yeah, I'm really thinking for you. My thoughts and prayers are with you. You know, you hear that a lot. You see that a lot. And just think about this, though. The communication side of prayer. Does lighting a candle or thinking thoughts or some other thing like that, again, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying, does that actually communicate anything to anyone? Now, some of you were thinking, but I don't know what you're thinking. So I'm just going to say right there, it probably didn't work, did it? The thoughts itself don't really communicate anything. Or lighting a candle in itself, and nothing wrong with lighting a candle. Candles are great. Sometimes I'll do them for mood. We've had prayer rooms where we had candles lit all over the place, and I think that's really cool. But the candle itself wasn't the prayer. It was me communicating that was the prayer. And that's a pretty important distinction here. Let's say everybody comes home from work and school or whatever you're at, and it's evening, and you're all had a long day, and you're all tired, and no one thought ahead to make anything for supper, and you're all like, what are we going to have for supper? Well, let's go somewhere. And where do you want to go? And so you go sit down, and you start thinking about it. I'm thinking about a juicy steak. I'm thinking about Texas Roadhouse. I'm thinking about a cactus blossom. That sounds, oh man, their bread, and it's nice and warm, that little cinnamon butter stuff. You're thinking all these great thoughts about what supper is going to be. And while you're thinking about it, everybody else is over here talking about it. And the more you're thinking about it, you're getting more and more excited about that steak. And they finally come and say, hey, come on, let's go. We're going to McDonald's. And you're going like, well, wait a minute. It's like, well, you didn't say anything. Those thoughts didn't do much. You can do all the vibes you want. You can do all, they don't do anything. They're nothing. They're not communicating. You kind of forgot to communicate, hey, I'm really in the mood for steak. You probably could have won that conversation, I'm guessing. At least in my family it would have. McDonald's steak. But you waited. You didn't do anything. And because you didn't communicate. Communicate takes effort. Prayer takes effort. Now, God is sovereign, right? Can he read your mind? Yes. Yes. He does know your thoughts. But he never asked us to give warm thoughts or vibes or anything like that. He asked us to pray, and prayer involves communication. So when people, you tell people that you're praying for them, like often on our Pathway Facebook group, someone will say, hey, pray for whatever, and people say, praying. Okay, when you do that, please don't let the word prayer be your prayer. You know what I'm saying? Actually pray. Stop, pause, engage God, and go to prayer. Communicate with God on that person's behalf. Don't just think, well, I said I'm praying that. Check, I did that. I'm thinking about it now. Thinking about it while I'm driving. Thoughts don't do anything. Thoughts aren't going to help me a bit. I don't want your thoughts. I want your prayers. I want your prayers on my behalf, but not your thoughts. Take time and effort to stop what you're doing and pray. Now, secondly, the second part of that sentence is look at who you're communicating with. The God of the universe. You're not communicating with me. You're not communicating with the neighbor. It's with God, the creator of the universe. There is no challenge too big for him. There is no problem beyond his ability to be able to handle it. He spoke the universe into existence in a matter of days. The stuff that we say took millions of years, he just spoke it and it happened, right? He can alter that in any way he wants at any time he wants. He is ultimate authority over everything spiritual, over everything physical, over everything natural. There is nothing beyond him. That's who you're talking to him. So bring the big stuff to him. But also don't be afraid to bring the little stuff, because he's also actively engaged in your life, in the little details too, in the little things of life. I love Matthew 10, verse 29, where Jesus is talking. He's talking about the little stuff. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. He knows, he's watching even what the little birds are doing, right? But even the hairs of your head are numbered. He's saying God knows the minute little tiny details of your life. Bring the little stuff to him too. You're communicating to the God of the universe. He can intervene on behalf of the big stuff. He can intervene on behalf of the little stuff. It's communication with the God of the universe. That's one principle. Very basic stuff. Some of you are going, yeah, I know, but it's just good to be reminded, right? The second basic principle is that prayer is a discipline. Discipline. Kind of like eating your vegetables, right? Kind of like doing your homework, or brushing your teeth. Whatever it is, a discipline. It's a discipline. When I was a little boy, my mom used to have to force me to take baths. I didn't want to take a bath. I didn't have time for a bath. I was playing. I had cars to drive around and neighborhoods to run around and friends to hang out with and bikes to ride. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I didn't have time for a bath. But every once in a while, my mom would make me come home early and force me, and I fought it the whole way, and she would force me to take a bath. It was a discipline. Now fortunately, I take bath showers regularly now. But in the beginning, it didn't come naturally. I didn't want to. I didn't care that I smelled. I didn't smell it. It was your problem, not mine. I was too busy. It's a discipline you have to learn. Most things that are good in life take some sort of discipline. It takes discipline to exercise regularly. It takes discipline to save money. It takes discipline to eat healthy. It takes discipline to pray. Discipline to pray. And Jesus assumes we will pray. We're just going to pray. He just knows you are, right? In Matthew 6, in the first few verses of chapter 6, Jesus says the phrase, when you pray, 3 times. And then 2 more times he says, when you fast, which is like an upgrade of prayer, like a bigger, more intense type prayer. It's included in the idea of prayer. Listen to this. This is a pretty good chunk, but just the context of Jesus talking about prayer. Matthew chapter 6, verse 5. And when you pray, again, you're going to pray, right? You must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, again, do not heap on empty phrases as the Gentiles do. They think they'll be heard just for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Pray then like this. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we've also forgiven our debtors. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. And when you fast, don't look gloomy, like the hypocrites. They disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly, I say to you, they've received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. He's just assuming, of course you fast, of course you pray, of course that's part of the disciplines of your Christian life. That's just what you do. That's what you do. Don't do it for a show. Don't try to impress everybody. Just do it. It's just part of your life, I don't run around saying, oh, I showered today. It's like you're thinking, well, I hope so. It's part you do. Well, as believers, we don't run around, oh, I'm fasting, oh, I prayed for half an hour today, I don't know about you. You just do it. You just pray. He doesn't even tell us really what to pray. He gives us some guidelines, which we've talked about before, some basic principles to pray for your daily needs and forgiveness and some worship time and that type of thing. He assumes we can get the details figured out on our own. He just assumes we're praying. Now, you may not feel like praying sometimes. It may not seem like the right time to pray. Sometimes you might rather do something else sometimes, but that's true of any discipline you do. That's why it's called a discipline. That's why prayer is often categorized in spiritual disciplines. It's something that we need to discipline. Our daughter, Shanna, some of you know this, just took the dental entrance exam a few weeks ago and scored in the top 2% of like anyone who's ever taken the test. Very, very impressive. And I'm not bragging on that. I'm just saying that it was a very impressive feat that she did there. She really put a lot of effort into that. So there's 2 parts of the test. There's like the math and sciences and academic part. That was the part she scored in the top 2%. She also scored, it was so high it was unmeasurable in the way they do this, but we kind of calculated about 0.05. In the top 0.05% of those, the part of the test that's a visual, like they take 2 different angles and say which one's bigger, and you're looking at them going, they look the same, and she has to decide which one's bigger or smaller, because that's all important in dental stuff, right? So she scored like way above, even though we'll be able to track exactly how it was. It was just very, very impressive. Now obviously she's a smart person, or she couldn't do that, right? But those test scores didn't come because she's quote a smart person, right? Those test scores came not naturally. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of the summer, she was taking practice tests and was doing quite miserably, and she was quite depressed, thinking this is going to be terrible and it's going to be awful. Matter of fact, her and I were having the same scores as we were both taking the visual test. We were very comparable in our scores at the beginning of the summer. But what she did was put together a very disciplined schedule of study this past summer. where she studied her chemistry and sciences and the different types of math, about 8 hours a day. I mean, not studying like I used to study, 5 minutes of study and 10 minutes looking out the window and or talking on the phone. She focused for 8 hours a day for about 10 to 12 weeks this summer, with an exception of a week she ran off to Zimbabwe with our mission trip, or a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever that was. So it's like she studied ahead of time, she took a break for Zimbabwe, and then she came back and studied more intensely again. And she did this on top of course, several years of very disciplined study that she went through high school and junior high and pretty much through her whole educational career. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, all right? I don't get it all figured out, but I believe, honestly, that pretty much any one of us could do that test and do quite well on it. Now, maybe not today, all right? I mean, I'd bomb it. I'd be terrible at it today. But I believe we all have the ability to do that. We all have the mental capacity. We could probably jump into that test and do it really well. What happens for most of us, we just don't have the discipline, or the desire. I have no desire to take that test, so why would I care? Why would I study those things? I don't need to know them for my particular. I don't need to know trigonometry and physics and all the different things that she studied for my test, and OChem and all the different, with chemistry and all that stuff. I just didn't need to know that. So I don't discipline myself at that level to learn those things. But she disciplined herself, and she did it every single hour of that test. And that's the difference between people like her and people like me. It boils down to discipline. See, when I was in college, I got a D, as in Dan, D- in preaching. Good thing I chose to go into preaching, right? Now, it wasn't that I didn't know how to preach. It wasn't that I didn't care. It wasn't that, I was not disciplined in that class. We had to write 4 sermons a week, and I was busy. I had a full educational schedule, and I was working full time, and I had girlfriend problems, and should have known that her mom lit candles, right? No, that's it. I had all these excuses as to why I wasn't doing my work. Okay, now she had many of those things going on this summer too, but she somehow managed to. She was disciplined. I was not. My life turned out okay. Her life's going to turn out okay, blah, blah, blah. But my point is, discipline makes a pretty big difference in life. The same thing goes with prayer. Every one of us in this room has the ability to have a disciplined, an active, a vibrant prayer life. Most of us just don't have the discipline to do it. So it's never like, I sure wish I could pray more. You will do exactly what you want to do. I sure wish I could pray like you. You can pray like you. Whoever that person is you're talking to, that you think, well, they're a prayer warrior. How come they're a prayer warrior and I'm not? They're disciplined. You're not. When it comes to prayer, it's a discipline issue. We all share the same excuses. Oh, we're busy, we're tired, we get distracted, yada, yada, yada. We all have all these distractions and excuses. Some of us just are more disciplined than others when it comes to prayer. Those are the ones who are growing spiritually, who have a vibrant, healthy spiritual prayer life, and who are hearing from God on a regular basis and communicating with Him, and they're having a great spiritual experience. Had a leader in the church years ago who said, people do what they want to do. And man, I've referred back to that in my mind. I was probably 20 at the time when I heard that. And I've referred to that so many times in my life. I thought, he's right. He was right. We do exactly what we want to do. If I want to have a vibrant prayer life, I will discipline. If that's not an important priority to me, if I'm not devoted to it, I won't be disciplined in the area. It's totally on me. I have no one to blame but myself. No one can be blamed for my D- in preaching but me. I chose to not discipline myself. Same with our prayer life, which all leads to the big application. Here's the big take home for you. So just do it. Just do it. See how deep and theological that is? You want to have a good prayer life? Pray. Nothing is stopping you from having that dynamic prayer life but you. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. We all have responsibilities. We all have different levels of children or not children, or family or not family, and whatever activities going on in our life. But we still have those same 24 hours. The only thing keeping you from having a dynamic prayer life is you. I don't care how you do it. I don't care when you do it. I don't care if you do it alone or you do it with other people. I don't care if you have some plan, if it's more spontaneous. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is just simply do it. Pray. Pray in the morning. Pray in the evening. I don't care when. Pray at noon. Pray when you're at work. Pray when you're walking to work. Pray when you're at the mall. Pray when you're driving. Just pray during the sermons. You're sitting there thinking, I can't listen to him anymore, but I can pray. Just pray. Pray. The only thing keeping you from praying is you. Pray with your coworkers. Pray when you read the Bible. Just pray. Doesn't matter how or with whom you pray. I don't care about that, but I do care if you're devoted to prayer or not, because if you're not devoted to prayer, that means we're not devoted to prayer. We're missing out, well, back in Acts, one of the top 4 things the early church was devoted to. That's not one of those things, well, I hope everybody else is doing it, because I'm sure not. Oh, I'm terrible. Oh, I'm just really bad at the prayer thing. Well, then do it. Do it. You determine if we're devoted to prayer or not. I don't. I help. I'm part of it. I got to be devoted too. But when we're all devoted, that means we're devoted. If we're not, then we're not. See how simple that is? This is pretty basic stuff here. I think over the years, my favorite go-to people for prayer has always been my small group. They tend to know what's going on in my life more than the bigger group, right? We met last week, and it was just good. We hadn't met for a while this summer and all that stuff, and it was amazing how much time we talked about just our prayer stuff going on. No, we actually didn't pray that much, which is embarrassing. But we talked about stuff to pray about, and I have all my notes, and I have it written down, and I was able to pray this week. And there are people now in this church who know things that other people don't, who they're gonna pray because they have a vested interest in me. They know more what's going on in my life than maybe the bigger group. They know some things I did this past week that I was asking prayer for, that I didn't like throw out in the public because it was just coming up. So it's a good thing to do. I love small groups for that reason. There's the connection, that's extra connection that you have with a smaller group of people. So my encouragement for you is do it. Pray, but find a group to pray with. If you're not part of a small group, jump on a small group. We have a bunch of random tables out there. I don't think all the small groups right now are represented out there, but they're representing some of the small groups out there. Have some conversations. Jump on board 1, jump on board 2, whatever. Get involved with a small group. That's where you're going to have the connections that we've been talking about in Acts 2 of the fellowship and the people to bond and pray with and to study God's word with, and that's just where community happens, is in these small groups. We're gonna walk away from this here in the next few weeks. This is like our last week studying about this, and our last week we'll have the tables out there. So I encourage you, even if today, go out there and poke around, see what's available. But in the future, just keep poking around. Talk to anybody who, hey, what small group you're part of, and join them. Because it's so vital. It's vital to your spiritual walk. It's vital to your prayer walk. It's vital to your understanding of God. It just helps you. It's a tool created to help you achieve the things we've been talking about in Acts 2:42 these past few weeks. All right. Go out and pray.